Stay tuned for the end of this episode. We do have a bittersweet announcement to share with all of you.
Oh, wake up, rethink the status quo. When you get your money right, then you're the one who runs your life. Come build a wealthy spirit with Sammy and Michelle.
If you are like millions, if not billions of people out there who are trying to figure out a better way to make friends and build community in your adult life, Sammy and I have got a great episode for you today. Here's the thing. Sammy, it's crazy because when we first started this podcast 4 years ago, we didn't even realize how applicable and how many times we'd be using these skills. I know I moved from San Francisco to Austin, back to San Francisco, down to a small town. Now we're in South Carolina. We have had to restart and make new friends many times. And I think about how I've refined this process, really saw what worked, really saw the difficulties, and I'm excited to share more about that today.
I completely agree, Michelle. And friends are so important. It's like our episode where we talk about the 5 people you surround yourself with and how we become those people over time. So it's really important to put in effort into building community and to be strategic in choosing who your friends are.
I agree, Sammy. And the thing is, it's not just the 5 people you surround yourself with. One thing I realized is you also attract the 5 people that you surround yourself with. And if you're someone who's a part of this community and bettering yourself, then you know that's a challenge. So I'm really excited to talk about this today.
Let's get into it.
But first, this is Michelle, and I'm so excited to share that I have started doing writing coaching for people who want help with accountability, refining their craft, and distributing their work. You can look at our show notes for a link if you're interested in working with me.
Back to today's topic, how to build a community, how to make friends as an adult. Michelle and I have talked about this topic once before, and we have an amazing infographic which goes through the 5 steps on how to build community. We have tested this out here in Charleston over the past 1.5 years and have had amazing success in making friends, and it is only becoming more and more valuable as we continue to find more and more friends who are in alignment with our values.
Here is the first step. Sammy, I think it's so important before you start to have a vision in mind. What are your interests? What are your values? I'm somebody, I don't drink, I live a healthier lifestyle, I'm into woo-woo spiritual things. And so finding events and things like that will be important for me. But it's nice to know that ahead of time, so you're not just attracted to whatever event fits on your calendar, you're actually starting to think, what is the vision for the community I want?
Yes. And literally imagine a scenario where you're with your future friends, doing something that you love, in a place that you love. Create that vision, maybe even make a vision board so that you have a North Star when you are going through this process of building a community.
And Sammy, the next step, we're not just sitting here thinking hypothetically, visioning our future. The second step is get out there. Put yourself in the friendship making arena.
This is where you increase your friendship luck surface area.
Ooh.
That means going to as many events as possible, meetups, using Bumble BFF, finding local groups that you're interested in. Everything that you think you would be interested in, go there and try to meet people. This is probably one of the most uncomfortable parts, at least for me, in making friends. Because a lot of times you go to events, maybe you talk to one person, and you feel super awkward, and you don't know if that was fruitful or not. But let me tell you, having done this for the past 1.5 years very deliberately, you really don't know who you're going to see again. Sometimes that first awkward encounter later will become a closer encounter where you can dive deep with the person and really form a bond.
Sammy, we have such a fun story about how this just happened. I went to an event that's super aligned with me, Deep Talk. Our friends host it, and I love the deep conversations there. While we were there, I met a guy, John, who is really into other metaphysical things. He touched on this a little bit. It's not as relevant to the Deep Talk conversation, but it was really cool to see. Then I was telling Sammy and our friend Karinka while we were at this tarot dinner party at this really cool sodery, and I was like, oh, I met this cool guy named John, but I didn't get to talk to him more about it. Then guess what happens? As we're getting our tarot reading, we see him walk up and sign his name. It felt like serendipity. But Sammy, this is not crazy by chance things. When you're talking about increasing your luck surface area, I have found, especially after maybe the 6-month mark, this happens to me all the time. Because I'm going to events that are aligned with my interest and in a similar theme, I start to run into the same people. Yes, the first time I went to any of the events, even the second, even the third, it's a little cringe. Friendship making is cringe in the beginning. You don't know anybody. You don't know if the conversation you had connected. You have no idea who's actually going to be your friend in the future because you don't even know if you're going to see them again. But it's so cool by just attending these things, all of a sudden, you can create luck and run into somebody again and actually form a deeper connection.
Step 3, create a friendship database. Now, this is one of our most controversial but also most loved aspects of making a community and making friends as an adult.
I don't know if it's controversial, Sammy, but I think it's definitely a little bit weird at first.
Indeed it is. And that is because we, especially in the beginning, we would keep a Notion document, which we will link to in the show notes, where we would keep track of all of the people we met, characteristics about them, where we met them, their contact information. And this would help us remember each person. And I'm telling you, it sounds crazy because it is a little crazy. But if you're going to an event that you already went to before, it is great to go back to that document and review all the people you met last time and what you talked about. Because when you see them again, you can actually move the conversation forward. You can ask them, how's your grandma doing? You mentioned she was sick last time. How's that project you're working on that you were really excited about? It shows people that you care about them, you remember them, and it is a way to build that deeper connection.
Yes, Amy. People are often impressed by the things that I remember about them. And look, it's not like I'm pulling out my notes while I'm speaking to them, but even the act of writing it down, recalling the information, helps solidify it in your brain so that when you see them, you're starting to make those connections. But it's not like every time I meet somebody, I'm just really good at downloading that information. Especially when you're meeting a lot of people, it's nice to be able to just come back from the event, list those people, and anything that you remember about them. And you can even mark, hey, I like this person. Maybe it's somebody I'd want to reach out to again, or maybe I want to get their phone number next time we see each other.
Step 4. Hang out again.
This is so important, Sammy, even though it sounds obvious.
Michelle brought up an interesting point in the last section, which was get their phone number. Let me tell you, when I first started going to all these events, I felt so uncomfortable asking people for their phone number or their contact information. Like, it felt like I was asking them out, which for some reason I think I would have less of a problem doing than asking people to be my friend and to have their contact information. But you do get better at that over time. Like now, I'm always asking people for their number, and it doesn't seem weird at all. Some of the people I meet with regularly are people I met at an event, had a connection with, and just decided to keep getting dinner with them once every few months. So hanging out again is absolutely the most important thing in deepening the friendship.
Yes, Sammy. And here's an easy script for you. Hey, I've been really enjoying this conversation. I would love to exchange numbers. Maybe get coffee sometimes.
Nobody thinks it's weird. They're at the event because they're looking to meet people. So don't even feel bad about it.
To be honest, even if they think it's weird, you probably won't see them again. So it's fine.
Completely fine. We also love The 2-Hour Cocktail Party by Nick Ray. We have an entire episode about this with Nick Ray. We'll link to it in the show notes. But Nick Ray has this awesome structure for creating a small 10 to 12 people dinner party where you can invite a bunch of different people and get to know them better. And the structure helps make it so that the people feel more comfortable, and it includes awesome icebreakers and things like that that just help deepen the connection.
If you have any anxiety about hosting a party, this book is for you. We really love it because I can speak for myself. The thought of structuring a party, knowing how to start things, end things, even what type of food to buy is so overwhelming to me. So 2-hour cocktail party is really good. If you want to even deepen it more, The Art of Gathering by Priya Parker is really great. But the main thing here is one of the best way to hang out again with people, especially in a group, like instead of having to do 5 one-on-one coffees, you could just have 5 people over, is to host events. And the added benefit that I've noticed now that we've actually been doing this, Amy, is that you make friends and deepen your friendships with other people who host events. I find that people who host things really appreciate anyone else who does it. They appreciate someone else taking on the burden of hosting an event and bringing people together. And they're the best guest. They're the people who let you know if they're going to attend or not. They're the people who do try to show up. And so I actually think you also filter for some of the people that you might like the most. And you're also more likely to be invited to more things.
Yes, gotta shout out our friends Paul and Harris, who host multiple meetups and friend gatherings, as well as our friend Karinka, who is an amazing host. She creates the most iconic curated parties, such as her Legally Blonde Girls Night In. So cute, so iconic. So it's just great to make friends with these people. And when you host, they also host back. And I have to say, I'm a Virgo moon. I'm an organized person, and maybe not always the most personable. I'm on a little schedule, so sometimes that can be unfun.
Here's the thing. If you're trying to get to know Sammy at 10 p.m., it's not going to happen.
But I will say one huge benefit is if you are a person who plans, you will have friends. So be that person. Make the next event. You don't always have to host, right? But even if you're just planning the next get together, putting it on the calendar and sticking to it, that will help you have friends. Absolutely.
Sammy, our final point really deepens exactly what we're talking about. And that is show up. Showing up for people really helps deepen your friendships, and it helps support acquaintances who you can turn into friends. One example I have of this is a few months ago, I went to an event that this woman hosted, a meditation retreat, and I really liked her. We didn't necessarily get to have a lot of chances to talk because she's hosting the event, but we have a similar background. She's spent a little time in San Francisco, and I was like, I like her. I would love to continue getting to know her. But it wasn't necessarily a situation where we were exchanging numbers or going to hang out again. However, since then, she hosted a poetry night centered around the theme of death. She's hosted another retreat. She's hosting a third one. And I was like, I'm just going to attend all of her events. I don't really know what an art event surrounded by the theme of death is, but hey, I'll go. I'm going to put it on my calendar. I took Sammy, my little death lover, with me.
Naturally, I would join.
And we had a good time. And one thing I've noticed is the first couple of times, I was like, I'm not sure if she is equally connected with me or if she's interested. But actually, as I went to her third event, then she invited me to a special fourth event where she wants to be able to capture some of the moments that she's creating. I think she knew that I was somebody she could ask and would show up. And so letting people know you're going to be there, showing up to their events, even if it's not necessarily the same interest that you shared, if you have the time, it makes such a difference because people just really value other people who understand that hosting things is kind of scary and that if you come and it's additive, that's a beautiful thing. It's like a secret way to deepen a friendship with somebody.
It reminds me of our friend Luca, who last year at his birthday party gave everybody a list of advice that he has gathered from his years. And one of them included a quote from our podcast. It shows that not only is he listening, but he's actually paying attention to our podcast and then telling other people about it. And he absolutely does. He tells everybody about it. Just knowing that he supports us and supports what we're doing is so huge in our friendship. And that's really important. If you have friends and they're working on things, support them. They're going for their passions and you want to see them move forward in that way.
Exactly. And the goal, Sammy, is to make friends. So if you like somebody and you want to deepen your friendship with them, of course, one of the best things you can do is support their passions. And I love that example because having a podcast has made me realize how much I appreciate all of you who listen. It shows me that you value the time we put into this. It makes me realize that we have like-minded curiosities and interests. So I think seeing that with our own podcast made me appreciate that when I can, I try to support other people in their work.
Takeaways.
Takeaways for this episode. The 5 steps to making friends as an adult. Number 1, create a vision. Number 2, get out there. Number 3, create a friend database. 4, hang out again. And lastly, number 5, show up.
If you have any tips, we'd love to hear them too, because we are always trying to deepen our friendships. There are always new points in my life where I have a meltdown and I think, hey, I could use more friends. So any tips from any of you, we would love to hear them as well.
Community time!
Before we say goodbye, it's our community time.
Thank you all. We have tons of shoutouts today. First and foremost, I wanted to share Kendall, Clay, and TJ. You will all be receiving a copy of The Purpose Code by Doc G, Jordan Grummett. Thank you so much for listening to the episode and letting us know that you want a copy.
Next, our 4 Tendencies episode was quite popular. It always is. Lucas said those questioners are annoying, and he also said he's a questioner. Becky realized that she is an upholder listening to this, and she said, my friends don't even flinch when I leave dinners early. Marina loved the episode, and she said she is a questioner for sure.
She also suspects her baby's a rebel, just like me.
Paul says that he is an upholder, and Harris believes she may be 3, a questioner, rebel, and obliger.
Thank you, Raina. She texted me for my birthday, and she shared that she has been listening to the podcast. She said, I'm still enjoying listening to every single episode. Keep up the great work. Thank you, Raina. We appreciate you.
Masha said she loved the episode Deprogramming from the Corporate Mindset. She said that really, really resonated with her, and she's starting to break down the pattern that she has to work from 9 to 5. Instead, she's been listening to what her body and her mind wants and needs.
Final shout out to Richa, who is one of my writing coaches. She let me know that she had been listening to the podcast. She listened to an episode around death clock, and said she and her husband were laughing with us. Thank you all so much for listening. We love to hear from you guys.
Now, Michelle, I have to say, we talked about the death clock today. We talked about Kim's death poetry event, but really death is a transition.
Ooh, so true, Sammy. And sometimes some things end, and it's time to move on to the next thing. Specifically, Sammy and I have a bittersweet announcement. We have some big news to share. Sammy and I have been reflecting on the past 4 years of our podcast, and we have decided that we are ready to conclude this part of our journey. Next episode will be the 4-year anniversary of this podcast and the last episode of Build a Wealthy Spirit.
We're going to share more about this wonderful journey and closing this chapter in our next episode. But we want you all to know that we are so grateful to each of you for listening to this podcast. That is both of our favorite part about creating the podcast. Thank you guys so much.
If you'd like to share something about your experience listening to Build a Wealthy Spirit, we would love to hear from you. You can go to buildawealthyspirit.com and leave us a comment on this episode. We will share people's messages in the next episode.
And most importantly, be sure to join us next time as we put down the rulebook and we rethink the status quo.